Hey everybody, it's Sarah Howard Nelson with the Humor in Chaos podcast. And today I'm going to talk about, from the Humor in Chaos Searching for Joy book, I'm talking about blog post 15, which is oxygen masks. So I start off with that blog post talking about oxygen masks on airplanes and the often used example that I used to use a long time ago with people before it became real popular. Not that I started it, I got it from somebody else. I can't tell you who, I can't tell you where it originated from, but a lot of people talk about this. The whole concept of when flight attendants do their safety stuff with the passengers before the plane takes off, about putting your own oxygen mask on first before you help someone with you, particularly your child. And parents have a hard time with this sometimes because they think, well, then I'm not a good parent if I put my own mask on first. I'm being selfish, but it's not being selfish because you cannot give to someone if you haven't given to yourself first. And that's really what blog post 15 is about not doing the self-sacrifice thing. Are there times for self-sacrifice? Yes. And I say that in the blog post, as it says in the Bible, and I can't remember where it is in the Bible. It actually says in the blog post about, the greatest act of love is sacrificing for your friend. And that is true. But if you're constantly sacrificing yourself to the detriment of your health or your well-being, whether physical or emotional or mental or spiritual, you're not doing anybody any favors. And this was a hard lesson for me. I was very much a self-sacrificing wife and parent. I mean, my ex might actually disagree with me, but I happen to know my kids agree with me because they said it. So I would often give from a place of empty, and giving from a place of empty is not a good thing. You can only give from a place of fulfillment. Wayne Dwyer has a great example of, if you want to give somebody an orange, you can't give them an orange if you don't have an orange to give them. So you have to fill yourself first. With the oxygen mask scenario, for example, if I don't put on my own mask first, and my child here also needs a mask, and oxygen is, depleted from the plane, if I attempt to put their oxygen mask on first, which would be my first instinct, but I'm losing oxygen myself, which means I'm not thinking clearly. My physical reactions are not going to be wonderful. They're going to be not good. I'm trying to think of the word, impaired. My physical movements will be impaired. My brain will be impaired. And so chances are I'm not even going to get that mask on them properly anyway. And in the process, I may very well die. And regardless of whether that child survives or not, I'm not going to continue to be around to help that child. So by putting on my own mask first and supplying my brain and my body with oxygen, now I can more easily care for my child. And I bring this up because we do this to ourselves all the time, particularly emotionally. We don't take time for self-help. We don't take time for setting boundaries so that we retain our health and our strength. And we also, we overdo for our kids, and they become complacent from learning themselves. And so it's very important to do that, to feed yourself first, and also do it thoughtfully. And I continue in that blog post to talk about this in regards to forgiveness. And for a number of weeks here, I'm talking a lot about forgiveness, and I'm talking a lot about apologizing. In fact, I believe it's the Tuesday after this one that I'm releasing a much longer episode, Humor and Chaos podcast episode on apologizing. And the reason I did that is because I've already had one of these, maybe even two of these out on forgiveness. This one, I'm also going to talk about forgiveness, but it occurred to me in the midst of these that I, like many other people, rarely talk about the other side of that coin, which is apologizing. Apologizing is one side of the coin. Forgiveness is the other side of the coin. And reconciliation can't happen without both sides of the coin. Apologizing can happen without forgiveness or reconciliation. Forgiveness can happen without apologizing or reconciliation. So they can each exist on their own, but they're required together for reconciliation, full, true reconciliation. And so I'm bringing this up in terms of this particular blog post on oxygen masks, because so very often, one of the things that we do, especially women, but men too, in terms of giving what we don't have to give, giving from a place of emptiness, is forgiveness. I was so guilty of this. I'm also guilty, or have been guilty in the past, and I'm trying not to be. I'm trying very hard because it's hard to do. I'm practicing also not apologizing when it's inappropriate. And I'm also needed to practice, and I've gotten better at it, at not forgiving when it's inappropriate. Because most of the time we don't forgive when we should. But sometimes we forgive when we should not. And next week's is when I would normally have a guest speaker, but I'm not having a guest speaker. It's me talking about apologizing. So in that one, I'm going to talk about the same things. Apologizing when we should, but we don't, and also apologizing when we should not, but we do. But anyway, this one I'm going to go into forgiveness in terms of being too self-sacrificing. The thing about that is, when is it that when is it that we forgive when it's self-sacrificing? We do it to keep peace. Yes, I have notes. We do it to keep peace. You know, we want to just get the forgiveness out there and keep peace with the person. And the problem with forgiving somebody just to keep peace is that's when we get into bitterness or despair because they don't accept the forgiveness, or they take it and they didn't apologize. So then later on we're bitter and angry and about, why did I forgive them? They didn't deserve it, or so either they accepted and they didn't deserve it and now we're mad because they didn't apologize, or they rejected it. Well, now my forgiveness isn't good enough. So if you forgive just to keep peace, that's going to lead to bitterness. So it's almost a false forgiveness, right? It's imposed. It's a form of control if we're expecting a certain response from that person, if we're trying to elicit an apology from them. Now, you shouldn't necessarily wait for an apology to forgive. I'm going to talk about, and I have before, but I'm going to, go over why it's important to forgive anyway. But it has to come from a place of honesty. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. When it comes from a place of just keeping peace or getting over something, and that's it, and it's surface level, it's not real, it's dishonest, it's trying to control the specific response from that person, that's a controlling behavior. It can even be a form of manipulation, and that's not okay. And ultimately, by doing that, you're stagnating healing. You're not helping healing, you're stagnating healing. So what should we do then if we mean it? If we actually really do want to forgive this person, but they don't want to accept it? Okay. In that blog post, I talk about that as well. I talk about the story with the Buddha that Wayne Dwyer shares in a video from years ago when he was alive, about a man trying to express to the Buddha that he's angry with him. And the Buddha essentially looks upon this anger of this man, that this man is trying to impose on him, as a gift of anger. And the Buddha basically says at the end, says, I'm not accepting this gift of anger. And so the question is, he imposes the question on the man, says, no, who owns this gift of anger? Is it you or is it me? Well, it's the man trying to give it. If the person to receive it doesn't accept it, then the person trying to give it, it belongs to them. So then that angry man has to retain that anger because the Buddha is not accepting it. This can happen with forgiveness too. So if I am trying to forgive someone and they don't accept the forgiveness, then that gift of forgiveness is mine. I may have done it in a bad way that I just talked about, in a self-sacrificing way or in a peacekeeping way or something like that. That's not good. It's still mine. It still belongs to me. Or I could give it with full intention and full meaning, and I truly do want to forgive this person, but again, they don't want to accept it. Still, it's mine. Now, the beauty of that is I can turn that forgiveness around and I can give it to myself. And I've talked about that before in another video from, I think, a couple weeks ago. Can't remember, or I've written it somewhere. And by the way, these podcast episodes are not intended to replace or be equal to my blog posts or my other writings. They're intended to enhance them. So I strongly suggest going and reading them. You can either get the book and read them on the book, or you can go online and read them for free on the blog on humorinchaos.com. The whole blog is out there. There's the main blog, and then there's the Searching for Joy blog series, which these are from the Searching for Joy series. So these are only intended to go in hand, not to replace or regurgitate. So I'm not talking about everything that's in the blog post, but okay. So again, I have to get back to the whole being overly self-sacrificing. And this doesn't have to be in terms of forgiveness. It can be in terms of giving love when love can become toxic. If you're giving love when you don't have love to give, if you're not loving on yourself first and filling yourself first, and you try to impose love onto somebody else when you're at a place of hurt, that can actually backfire. It's self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice backfires. That is the problem. Okay, so, but I'm focusing on the forgiveness aspect. So how to not be self-sacrificing? Take care of yourself first, okay? No matter what it is, if we're talking about self-sacrifice in love, self-sacrificing with food, self-sacrificing with forgiveness, self-sacrificing in anger, not expressing your anger when you are angry, burying it deep, okay? That's also bad. Take care of yourself first. Fill yourself up with what you need. Give yourself that rejected forgiveness, or give yourself a whole different round of forgiveness. Apologize and forgive yourself. Anything like that. But take the time to sit with yourself. Feel the feelings, okay? I've been hurt by someone, or I did something that hurt myself, or I am empty, I am lonely. Whatever that feeling is, feel that feeling, sit with it, let it settle inside of you. The wonderful thing about feelings, and I've said this time and time again, the wonderful thing about feelings is they direct us to what needs attention. Now, people will do one of two things. They'll either deny their feelings, bury them, and then eventually they explode. Wrong. Or they go overboard. Well, I'm going to feel my feelings and I'm going to vomit them on everybody else around us. No, no, no. It's a happy middle, and the healthiest aspect can be somewhere around the whole trajectory of denial and overdoing. Okay. And it can be challenging to find where you need to be at any particular point in time. But feelings have their purpose. And Brene Brown says this really well. Feelings have their purpose, and they direct you to what needs attention. The attention can be good, or it can be loving, or the attention can be, disciplinarian or whatever. And discipline is not a bad word. It's good or bad depending on how you do it. But the feelings direct, this needs attention. Brene Brown says it's like the smoke detector, okay? The smoke detector is going off to say there's something you need to look at, and too often people will take down the smoke detector and pull out the battery and kill the thing without looking at what the smoke detector is trying to say. Hey, either there's a fire, or it needs a new battery, or it's broken and needs to be replaced. It is trying to tell you something. That is what feelings do. They are also part of your identity. They are a God-given gift, not something to be denied, not something to be trampled on. They are to be respected. You should respect your own feelings. And by the way, you cannot respect somebody else's feelings if you do not respect your own feelings. Otherwise, you're being self-sacrificing. If I put your feelings above my own feelings, I am self-sacrificing, and that is going to hurt me in the end, or hurt both of us in the end. Okay. Also wanted to point out, it's like, I have minutes. I'm talking about your own emotions here. I am not talking about emotions imposed upon you. Okay, this is something, again, I don't find a lot of people talk about, but we will get emotions from somebody else imposing them on us. Like, not the only example, but the best example people will understand is abuse. If I am feeling fear because somebody is doing something to me that is making me feel fearful, whether it's, physical abuse, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse. Okay, that is a red flag emotion of just get out of the situation. Okay, so if we're talking something abusive, and if you think it might be abusive, get help to find out if it is. That's an immediate reaction. I'm talking about your other feelings that are not from an abusive situation, of sit in them, analyze them, and see where they're coming from. See what they're pointing to. Because really what they're pointing to is where they're coming from. They're not always, in an abusive situation, they are pointing to you to get out. Okay, but in a non-abusive situation, they're pointing to you to turn and look at where they're coming from. What's the cause? What's the reason? What's the seriousness? Stuff like that. So when I say sit and feel your feelings, I'm not talking about the ones that are from abuse. Those need immediate reaction. Get out. Okay. When you are sitting in these negative feelings, okay, you've been hurt, or regardless of whether or not the person has apologized, I'm trying to get back on track here on forgiveness. Regardless of whether or not the person has apologized, you're hurt and you want to genuinely forgive. Okay. We could actually also do this with, you tried something and it didn't work. Now you're mad at yourself because now you feel like a failure. So the person you need to forgive is yourself. You need to apologize to yourself and you need to forgive yourself. So whether it's somebody else imposes on you or you imposed it on yourself, whether you meant to or not, intentionality here. Well, intentionality matters. Sometimes we do things on purpose and sometimes we don't. Sometimes things happen. Either way, you're trying to forgive. Okay. Release the fear of reaching the bottom of whatever pit this is. Release the fear of it. Go ahead emotionally and fall into the pit. We struggle to not find the bottom of the pit. We waste energy trying to prevent ourselves from getting to the bottom. Here's the thing about finding the bottom of the pit. Rarely is the bottom of the pit as bad as we think it's going to be. Once in a while it is. Oftentimes it's not. How many times do we, this happened to me. I've gone in for surgery. Like when I went in for my back surgery, okay. I heard so many people tell me, don't do the back surgery. It's so much worse afterwards. You're going to be blah, 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 hurting, blah, 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 more and more, and on and on and on. Don't do the surgery. The surgery itself is awful. And I'm not going to say that it wasn't painful. The surgery itself was very painful. I had to be opened up completely from front to back. But people who were telling me not to have the surgery, and yes, sometimes back surgery is bad. I'm not saying that every back surgery is successful. But I do know from looking at statistics that the majority of back surgeries are successful. That a lot of times the reason they're not successful is because people don't do the physical therapy it takes to maintain the success of the surgery. Now, they're rarely 100%. But people who told me not to do the surgery were not comprehending how much pain I was in. I was in so much pain that there was a chance, okay, there was a chance that I was gonna end up paralyzed because I literally had the disc in my back had not just wasn't just bulging, it had exploded. It was in pieces. And one of the pieces was literally cutting into my spine. It had to be done. There was no more option. I was going to slowly become paralyzed as it was cutting into my spine. And it hurt so bad. I literally wanted to blow my head off. No joke. Asked my ex-husband. I literally asked him to that. And he said no. And he did everything in his power to find me a good surgeon. And he found me a good surgeon who said to me, I'm going to do my best to get you, I can maybe get you 50% pain relief. I was willing to risk my life with the surgery for 50% pain relief. I got 90% pain relief. Okay. The surgery was worth it. And by the way, the reason it was risking my life wasn't even because my back, it was because my blood disorders. Because he also said to me, you very likely could die on the table. Because that was one of the reasons we had a hard time finding a back surgeon. Nobody wanted to do the surgery on me with my blood disorders. So my ex had to find somebody who was willing to take the risk. And we had to accept that I could bleed out, which by the way, I did bleed out. Even though the surgeon had extra blood on hand, he had to call up more. And I did survive it, and I got 90% back relief. I also had to have the recognition that this 90% back relief might not remain 90%. By the way, now it's at about 80. I'm still very happy I had the surgery, and it has now been, 6 years. So it was worth it. Not saying everybody's will be worth it. You do have to do, this is very much, back surgery is very much an individual thing. And I'm saying this because, well, it was very emotional. It was an extremely emotional time of self-sacrifice. I was self-sacrificing for other people, how scared I was, how frightened. The only person who knew my level of fear and pain was my ex-husband. He was my husband at the time. He was the only person I was being honest with. And unfortunately, he couldn't take it. I know that that's a lot of the reason why we split, was because he couldn't handle the honesty of it. But I'm not sorry for the aspect of the honesty of getting to the bottom of the pit. I was scared. I was so afraid. This pain and this fear of this surgery and needing to have the surgery was the bottom of that pit at that time in my life. But there I was at the bottom of it with all of this fear. And when I just accepted that and let go, I had a better outcome. I stopped fighting it. I stopped fighting the fear of failure as a mother, of failure of fear as a wife, of failure of my health having been bad, fear of the self-sacrificing I did for my family, which got me into the bottom of that pit. And I just accepted that I was there. So what I want people to consider is release the fear of failure and release the fear of loss, release the fear of loneliness, even though I was telling my, then husband the truth about how I was feeling. In reality, I was alone. I didn't quite know that yet. I found out shortly after how incredibly alone I actually was. But I had to get over fear. Because once I was able to accept the reality of my situation, that I was in the bottom of this pit, that I could not go any lower. I could not. When I embraced my helplessness, embracing helplessness was my first step to finding hopefulness. See, so the bottom of the pit doesn't have to be so horrific. It can actually be the very beginning of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because I did. When I came out from surgery and I didn't know what condition I was going to be in, at the very least, I was now in an honest state of where I really was at. I had to let go of thinking things like, or saying things to the people in my life. Why does it do that? I didn't mean you to be there. That thumbs up thing. I had to let go of making statements like, I've got this, because I didn't. I'm fine, because I wasn't. Nothing is wrong, because everything was wrong. By saying those things, I was trying to control how my kids felt, how my friends felt. I was trying to control whether people were worried about me or not, whether they were going to show up for me or not, whether they were stressing themselves, whether they were being self-sacrificing. I was trying to control the narrative around me instead of being honest about how things really were. I also needed to release the need of control so that I could feel safe. I wasn't safe. The honest truth was I wasn't safe. And I could not confront what needed to be confronted without being honest that these things were really happening. I had to release the need for admiration, for people to look up to me for being, because people would say to me all the time, oh, you're so strong. I went from being angry of people saying that I was so strong when I knew that I was not so strong, but they were kind of right. I was quite strong, but I flipped all the way to the other side to, yes, I want to be their inspiration. And I got to a point of, no, I am no one's inspiration. I am strong, but I am not strong in the way that they say that I'm strong. And I am not here to inspire other people. I am here to help people, but inspiration can become a falsehood. Okay, honest help can be real and true, and that's what I try to do, but wanting admiration can become a falsehood. And so I needed to give up the need to feel admired by people. Once I was able to let go of control, and I really didn't learn how to let go of control until I was coached myself during my separation from my now ex-husband. Okay. What if there is no apology from someone who has hurt me? What if I am forgiving someone who has never apologized and is never going to apologize? It really doesn't matter. Whether or not somebody apologizes is in their control. It's not in my control. What is important here is, by embracing my helplessness in that situation, I am now embracing the hopefulness that I can work on my own spiritual, emotional, mental, even physical well-being, that I can now see what is in my control with an honest view, which is me, myself, and I. The only thing that I can control is me, myself, and I. The only thing you can control is you, yourself, and you. Okay. And that is my overall statement, is that recognizing your own helplessness is the first step in seeing the real hopefulness in whatever situation you are in. Let go of self-sacrificing ideas. Let go of the idea that the more you give and give and give for the people around you is going to make everything better, because it's not. You have to love yourself as much as the people around you. You can only give what you have to give. It's perfectly all right to want to nurture people. That's perfectly wonderful to want to nurture people. It's perfectly wonderful to want to nurture your children, your spouse, your friends, whoever, the people in your community around you who are vulnerable and in need. That's wonderful, and we need that. We need nurturing. But if you recognize first your own helplessness and what you need first, then you've got more to give. And so that's what I really wanted to say in that blog post. That's what I was really trying to convey. To truly see hopelessness, first you've got to see your own helplessness. So anyway, that is the episode for today. This is Sarah Howard Nelson. I am still looking for a few guests left. As I said in a previous episode, there is going to be an end date on this podcast, or at least on this podcast series. There might be other series, but right now I'm just focused on this one, and it does have an end date, but I am still looking for guests. So if you or someone you know would be a great guest for helping shine the light of hopefulness, to help somebody see the light when they're in the bottom of the pit, send me an email, humorinchaos@gmail.com, or look me up on my website, www.humorinchaos@gmail.com. Remember, I'm Sarah. I am a certified resilience life coach and a certified art therapy practitioner. And if you want to sit down with me and color in a coloring book and talk to me about what you need help with, send me an email. All right. Take care, everybody, and bye-bye.